GSA proudly presents Synchronous Engagement with special guest Dr. Keane. Throughout this video, we'll discuss what is synchronous learning, how is synchronous online learning different from face-to-face learning, what is synchronous online engagement and how do we do it well, and what tips do you have for synchronous online learning. Before we begin, take some time to think about the following questions. What do you know about synchronous learning? What is your prior experience with synchronous online learning? And what do you want to know to make your synchronous online experience more engaging?
So what is synchronous learning?
Synchronous learning is communication or learning that occurs at the same time.
How is synchronous online learning different from face-to-face learning?
Engagement in face-to-face classes versus engagement in synchronous online classes, for me, comes down to kind of one main difference. I think that synchronous interaction in an online class is much more social emotional, and it enhances those interpersonal connections that students are building with each other.
So how do we do it well?
You have to consider how to engage students in synchronous online learning because you want to take advantage of the fact that you're meeting in real time. You have the opportunity to connect with them, to see them face to face, to present yourself as a real person, and to interact with them in a more natural way.
So how can I engage learners better?
First things I did was share an agenda ahead of time so the students can be prepared, so they knew what the plan was, they knew what to come with, and in terms of what they needed to come with, it was just something minor. They needed to have access to one of the graphs in the text that we were going to look at. When the class session started, I have music playing in the background for the couple minutes as we're waiting, just to kind of set a more casual tone. I make sure that I start with a prompt that everyone responds to. If it's a really large group, this class in particular was about 16 students, so we had the chance, I gave everyone a chance 1 minute to respond to the prompt, and they had their audio and video on, so everyone sort of had a chance initially to be heard and to be seen. I've done this with larger groups up to 30, 40 students sometimes, and if it's that large of a group, I often have everybody respond into the chat, and then I just kind of pull some of the responses out of the chat and elaborate on those.
What tips do you have for synchronous online learning?
Some of the tips I have, for creating these successful live classes, things like greeting all the students by name, sharing the agenda ahead of time, having time for cameras on and cameras off, having time for live questions, using the chat consistently and making sure as the instructor that you're monitoring the chat and responding to all the questions, even if that means, you pause for a minute and then you say, I'm going to check the chat. I haven't had a chance to keep my eye on it. And you take a pause for a minute and you go back and look and make sure everything has been responded to that warrants a response. Using the breakout rooms, using the polls, using all the features in the system that you have. We use Zoom, but Zoom allows us to do all of those things to make the live classes a little bit more engaging. And so I think those are really kind of just some useful ways to do.
As we wrap up, take some time to reflect on your learning. How do your prior experiences with synchronous online learning differ from the best practices shared by Dr. Keane? What engagement strategies will you incorporate into your practice? And as you think about your knowledge of synchronous learning, what other information do you need to be successful in this area?